Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well from whichever part of the world you are watching. Yes, for those of you who have been asking, I did the Madrid Marathon. I survived and I was not timed out. That said, I was not too far from being timed out, only 8 seconds within cutoff, but it's done, it's dusted. And oh boy, I think it was incredibly hot. I think Madrid was the hottest it has ever been when I've run my previous marathons. I remember I was in kilometer 39 or 40, and one of the bus stops had the temperature readings and it read 37 degrees Celsius. 37 degrees Celsius. So that was my Madrid marathon. And also on the day I ran the Madrid marathon, we had broken world records in London. Two runners under 2 hours. Wow, what the human body can do and what I would do to be able to run that fast. But let's see next year how my Murcia marathon goes. Okay, today I would like to talk about the guest nobody remembered. I continue to take you on the journey of getting my thinking ducks in a row for my book, my next book. And by the way, some of you have asked, I will be revealing the name soon. I don't think I'm going to change the name anymore, but let me just sit with it for a few weeks before I reveal it, just in case I change my name, the name of the book, and then we're back to square one. So I will have a drum roll and I will reveal the name. And the reason I'm not doing is not to be secretive. It's that I don't want to, you know, stress you guys out too much with all the changes I'm currently making. I know I'm driving my book coach crazy. So, the guest nobody remembered. Now, today I'm speaking to owners of boutique hotels. And the question for you is, when was the last time you walked through your hotel as a guest? So, not putting on the hat of the person who knows the ins and outs of the entire property. You know exactly where things have been built, the little nuances, the struggles you've had because you had to build something, all the shortcuts, not even shortcuts, all the things you needed to do to make that property possible. So no one knows your property better than you do. So I'm not asking you when was the last time you walked past your hotel, remembering the name of each and every staff member of yours, knowing exactly what happens where, knowing exactly who's coming into your hotel, who's leaving your hotel, who are your suppliers. I'm not asking about that. I'm asking, when was the last time you walked into your hotel with the hat of being a guest? The guest who planned the trip maybe a year ago to come to your particular property. Maybe they're traveling from another continent. They've had to go through all the visa process, all the travel process, worry about getting their home in order, their mascots in order, getting all the kids they needed to get, sorting everything out, saving money to be on this vacation and to be spending that hard earned money in your hotel. And their only job as a guest is to be looked after. That's the deal. They're going to pay their hard earned money so that you and your team look after them, give them the treatment they wish. the treatment they want, the treatment they deserve. When I say treatment, the service they deserve. When was the last time you walked your hotel as someone who's going to spend money enjoying it, an experience that people would have planned months in advance? Because here's what I've seen. We get so absorbed in knowing the ins and outs of our entire property, of everything that is happening inside it, that we lose sight of how the very people we built this property for are going to be experiencing it for the first time with the loved ones, creating the special and memorable moments. And what I've realized is that there is a gap between what we think our guests are actually living and obviously what we want them to live. There is that huge gap. And today, I want to address that gap, why it exists, and how it happens. Now, to bring this home, I remember this property a few years back that I was hired to create a wellness concept for this gorgeous property in a beautiful region here. And as part of the market research, I had the difficult job of going and trying all the top wellness hotels in the region, top 5-star hotels, either with third-party operators or medical centers or longevity clinics. And I tried them all. And I remembered this specific property, which was a renowned 5-star property. Beautiful taste, beautiful property, charging thousands of euros a night with a fantastic or well-known wellness clinic attached to it. And I had booked 2 wellness experiences in the property. And I thought, if I were a guest paying for this, I would be completely underwhelmed. In fact, I left underwhelmed. And I had spent well over 500 euros to try 2 basic services. And I left completely underwhelmed. So I remember I on purpose booked the treatments or the services, the treatment and the services of peak hours because I was doing a last minute booking. And I had booked a yoga session and then after that, a massage. And when I got to the property, I was told the spa is typical in the dungeon. So, you'd have to kind of find your way from the lobby, the concierge, to get to where the wellness facility actually was. And when I walked into the spa, because that was the main reception for wellness related services for the yoga and for the massage, this lady came up to me, and the way she came up to me, the way she held herself, the way she communicated with me clearly showed that she was someone who was leading or managing the department. So I assumed she was the spa or wellness manager. And the service was all correct, all done to a very high professional level. And when I told her that I had a yoga session and then I had the massage, she directed me to where the yoga session was going to happen. And she told me to take the door on the right, to go up a flight of stairs, And on the left hand side, there's a door. My yoga teacher will be waiting for her. Now, this is a 60-minute yoga session where I paid 200 euros or maybe 250 euros. So I really didn't expect that level of service. So this is me walking up the stairs, and it was not the pretty stairs of the hotel. It was pretty much kind of the back, the exit staircase. And so I went up the staircase, and then I reached, I think, the first floor or the floor above it. And I turned left and I opened the door and I entered into a conference room. That's what I entered into, a conference room. It was big. It was slightly cold, but it was summer, so it wasn't too bad. It had beautiful views. So it had kind of these like glass doors that you could see into the garden, but it was a conference room. And where I had entered, to the left hand side, right to the far left hand side, there were tables stacked, chairs stacked, everything you need, like some kind of music equipment that needed to be there, set up in terms of projectors. They were all kind of stacked the way you would stack it in a hotel towards the left hand side of the conference room. And my yoga teacher had set up my mat and her mat. And that was where we were going to have our yoga session. I can't remember if there was any music or not. I just remember feeling slightly cold, and it felt incredibly uncomfortable because the flooring, it was a typical wooden flooring. So it was not, thank heavens, a carpeted flooring that you would find in conference rooms. But it was kind of this parquet flooring. And it wasn't the most comfortable to have my yoga mat, and you could tell it had not been cleaned every single day. And I was thinking, oh, sweet Jesus, my poor body's, like I hate dirt and mess. I was like thinking, oh, oh, good Lord. So, whenever your body, any part of the body would go out of the mat, it just made me cringe. And I'd like to say the yoga teacher was lovely. The yoga session was done to an incredibly high level, because what I'm talking about is not the yoga teacher. I'm talking about how I felt. She gave a very good yoga session, which is definitely worth 250 years. She got to know my body very quickly. She personalized everything. She was top, and she was just very friendly and nice to be around. And I remember like probably 10, 15 minutes into the session when I finally kind of thinking, my God, we're actually doing it here. This is where we're doing a yoga session. So when my mind had finally kind of calmed down and landed into this, yes, we're doing a yoga session here. So also just sit and enjoy it in my mind, telling myself. And it was around 10, 15 minutes into the session, because these are these typical huge conference rooms. There was a door to the other end. Someone walked in. He clearly looked at us having the yoga session. He went, took a cart, and, cart wheeled out a stack of chairs. And all the while the door is open, all the while you could tell he was looking at us. Not badly, nothing bad about him looking, but it was just like, curious. And I was like, my God. I was incredibly self-conscious. Not that I'm the most agile and flexible person, so I can only imagine that poor soul would have been traumatized to see me in all these yoga positions. And then I just continued the yoga session. And then a few minutes later, two other people walked in, and they were having a conversation, and they suddenly stopped because they clearly saw that there was a class happening when they realized, and they kept quiet. But you could tell they were there. You could tell they were looking, and you could tell they felt uncomfortable. And then they took the table out And clearly, the table knocked the door a bit while they were getting out. They had to open, it was those doors where you have to unlatch one and it opens fully. You have both doors open. And then they went, and then someone else came in. I think it was the maintenance guy, came to fix one or two things, and he left. And this time he didn't shut the door fully. So it was just slightly open. So I could hear, the door was creaking slightly while I was doing my yoga session. This all happened when I paid 250 euros for a session. And once the session was done, she was very, very kind, a yoga teacher. I remember we were around 5 or 10 minutes over time, and I didn't take my, I never wear a watch. I didn't take my mobile phone with me. And so we went over time. I didn't even know we had gone over time. I was, and once the session was done, she was very sweet. She thanked me. She asked me if there were any questions, everything great. And I said, no, I'd just like to go back to the spa, have a massage. Then she said, oh, yeah, you can get out of the door, turn here, go down the steps, and then you'll see the spa. Now, that didn't really surprise me. If the spa manager did not accompany me to the conference room, I clearly would not expect a freelance external yoga teacher to be taking me back to the spa. That service wouldn't quite match. And when I got back to the spa, there was a receptionist there now. So the spa manager was not there. And I was late. And she told me, you're late for your massage. And I told her, yes, I was upstage having a yoga session. The lady who was here mentioned that, and no one knocked on my door. And I didn't have the clock on me. And, sorry, I'm late. She said, yes, but, we will try to give you a full session, the typical thing. If we can give you a full session, we'll give it. And in the end, I can't remember if they gave it or not. And I just walked in still with all the dirt in my hands and my yoga kit from being in a conference room. And I had the massage. And then I finished the massage and I just paid for the entire experience, which was roughly around 500, 550 euros. And then I was sent to go and find my way back outside the hotel. So I was that guest nobody remembered. And the irony of it all is that clearly, when this hotel, when the wellness facilities were built, when every single area of the hotel was built, someone truly cared. Someone wanted guests to have a nice experience. And every single person who I encountered gave me good service. They definitely gave me 5-star service. So it was good service. I mean, I would have liked someone to have accompanied me if they're sending me off to a conference room for a yoga session. But nonetheless, clearly at one point I saw that someone cared enough and everything was thoughtful. But somehow, somewhere along the road, things just fell apart. And this is far more common than we think. We get obsessed with reaching certain standards, picking up the phone in 3 rings, doing these certain kind of robotic following standards and brand standards, that we forget that the software, our people, are who make the guest feel felt, not invisible, not someone who can be easily forgotten. And I am sure if the owner was listening to this and found out that this was the real experience I had, they clearly would be mortified. because that is not what they want. I can pretty much, say that quite confidently. We all want our clients to have a good experience in our hotels. We all want that. That's why we've built them. Clearly, also to make it a profitable business, but also delivering experiences that are superlative, that change people's lives in some shape, way, or form, that make them have fun, that allow them to disconnect. Yet I have lived this experience more than once where I have spent top dollar and left feeling as if no one even remembered who I was. And I'm sure nobody did. So, why does this happen? Here's my take on it. I think this happens because of a concept that Napoleon Hill talked a lot about, drift. And it doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't happen like in one key incident, or it's one isolated person, or it's change of management. It's not one major event where you see a before and after and then you've drifted. Drift is something that happens slowly every single day, where first the spa manager, giving an example in this, going back to my experience, the spa manager has to go attend a morning briefing, or is incredibly busy, or has had to cover the shift for someone, or the receptionist is called in sick or was coming in late, so she had to come in, she had to cover reception. She's kind of going very clumsily past the reception area because that's not her day-to-day job. And the client appears at an hour that normally clients do not appear, first thing in the morning, and I'm asking for a yoga session on top of that. And because she is strapped for time, she just directs me to go and find my way and find the yoga session. Now, clearly, I was not going to get lost, but it would have been nice, that small little detail. And she probably thought, I'm going to do this once. It's just one client. It's one off. It's okay. But that one off then happens a second time. Someone else does the same thing. Then someone else does the same thing. And trust me, I'm guilty as charged. I am not going to pretend that this does not happen, that I've not done it. Operations in hotels are so incredibly hard. I know that, I've lived it, and I will definitely not be saying I've not done these things. But the thing is, you do it once, someone else watches you. They do it also just once. And we think that maybe once does not harm. And maybe in the grand scale of things, one little slip is okay. But the problem happens when that one slip happens today and it becomes two slips tomorrow, and the day after it becomes three tiny little slips. And each of these tiny little slips compound over time to create that drift, that gap between what your vision was for your guests to live in your hotel, that experience you wanted them to live, to the actual experience they're living. And it happens in these small, tiny moments. It does not happen based on a big budget meeting or huge cost cutting initiatives or huge changes, restructuring. It doesn't happen because of that. I'm not saying that that doesn't cause disruption in daily operations, but making your guest not feel remembered, completely forgetting that your guests ever existed, that is something that happens slowly and surely over time. And yes, we can retrain our team. Yes, we can put even stronger standards. But that does not solve the problem going forward. What solves it is understanding, does this make my guest feel better? Instead of, am I fitting as much as I can in my day to day? I remember when I was writing my first book, The Wellness Asset, when I was researching, I was reading a book, Will This Make the Boat Row Faster? And it was based on the story of, I think it was the British Olympian team of rowing. And they had only one measure. Will it make the boat go faster? Go faster or row faster? I can't remember the name of the book. And everything centered around it. Just imagine if in our hotels, if in our wellness facilities, we put the benchmark of, will this make our client feel better? Just simply. And if it doesn't, we simply don't do it. And if it does, we do it. Instead of holding our poor team members to a huge manual, a huge list of SOPs that no one ever remembers at the end of the day. And we only really go back to them once we have been inspected, we've not reached what, the standard or the rating that we thought we'd reach. So then we do a typical, training of standards for a month, and then they're forgotten until the next time we are inspected, or we know we're going to be inspected by whichever body is going to be ranking us or rating us to give us whatever price we want our hotel to get. I think that this is where we can simplify things to really think about, will this make our clients feel better? And that will help prevent that drift. The small little actions we take on a daily basis that throw us off track. And it is rarely the large, big decisions. And drift is what actually sends your hotel, sends your rating completely off the charts, completely off track from what you would have wanted. And the solution is quite easy. Just simply asking ourselves, if I were a client paying for this service, how would I feel being treated this way? How would I feel having to walk past the lobby and the bar in my flip-flops and my robe? How would I feel having a treatment right next door to a kids' club? How would I feel when I'm celebrating my honeymoon and I also have a hen party at the same time? How would I feel if I've come to build my family together, to have that key moment together, and my teenager child, under 16-year-old, cannot use the spa? I think all these small little details, if we just went and measured them against, how do we want our guests to feel? Will it make them feel better? Will it make them feel remembered? I think it would completely change how our teams treat our guests, and also how we treat our teams and to what standards we hold them responsible. Now, I'm not saying we need perfect facilities. I am not saying that day to day operations will not throw us off track. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is being mindful of the small little actions we take on a daily basis that end up becoming the drift, where our boat is been pushed so far away from what we truly want to deliver. And that requires you, as the owner of the hotel, to change your hat the next time you walk through your hotel and to think like a client. If I was walking here, would this be the treatment or the service I would want, what I would pay 500, 600, 700 euros for? So, my wellness leader friends, I wanted to share that with you today because we all get obsessed with standards. We all get obsessed with having the best hardware possible. We all get obsessed with all the accolades our hotels could get. And I'm not saying it's not important, all of those are important. But I think what's equally important and what makes that entire package more complete is asking, will this make my guest feel better? Or will this be just another guest that nobody ever remembers? And on that note, wishing you all a beautiful day ahead. Take care now.